Hi, everybody. Hope everybody's doing reasonably well. I have a question by Mary Lou Mangion in Ottawa. And is there a specific sequence or order in which to use the tools, energetic tools, to bring about silence in the emotional mind? And the answer, of course, is no.
Next.
So I could say next question, but I have to elaborate, of course, which makes perfect sense. I've made a couple of notes, but the very first thing about the emotional mind being quiet is that you have to realize that the emotion itself is a key part of our personality structure. It links with the physical body really strongly. In other words, the brain, the nervous system, the endocrine gland system. And anything that affects the personality literally touches the emotional system. So the physical body is a key player, and the intensity that you use to engage with life is another key aspect of an engagement with life. And it's key in the sense that if you look at an engagement with life itself, us being just alive, then you begin to understand that, as I've been talking about for a while, that there's a relationship with love involved with our life force, at least from this perspective. And that implies that everything that you do for you is a relationship with love. You use that energy, love energy, one could say. One could say that it's universal in its existence, because everyone is doing the same thing, but anything alive would be also. And you use that for a purpose. And that purpose is to align with our engagement with how you believe you need to function. Okay. Also, you use it to cultivate a kind of thinking process, often related to a linear process, of course, some form of logic, whether it be emotional or a single line of reference related to a kind of logical referral system. If this is true, then that must be true too. These kinds of things. But they're not always profoundly linear. We can jump all over the place and believe that we have been linear. It's complicated for sure, as a personality is constructed. We can go through the whole process of a young person engaging with parental background, trying to make sense of what they should be living like, and which is really important because these principal caregivers are the ones that are extremely important to us, but our minds aren't able to make sense of it the way it might attempt to make sense of it later on. It meaning how the parental background unfolds in relationship to the child. Child is always the down player, the one on the bottom, because it's basically attempting to learn how to function through the parental principles. And everything is quite tonal. You can check that out for yourself. in terms of different tones that other people use with you and how you react to them. You learned that when you were just a little kid. That reaction indented itself in you and played out through your life so that you would maintain those reactive systems as if they were the zone of comfort that are implanted in you by your ability to make sense of things during those periods of time. This continues on, by the way. It's really ground-ruled principles that you pick up, and this continues on all through your life. Now you get to a point as you're an adult and you're thinking of spiritual engagements and trying to increase your perception. Well, at the same time, there's a zone of comfort, which is literally engaged in you on a deep level and in a way that is really valuable to help you survive and copy how you think you need to be as an adult. And this is a copying construct, and we're good at that. The brain cells in our brain are more than we have as an adult, and they're functioning and plowing through and making links according to what you think you need to engage with. And the big idea is your parents love you, and so therefore this is your love definition. You see, if you act like this, that will be loving. And this is the nature of how we do things. But again, now you have to look at this and say, this may not have been the ultimate way to be. As an adult, I'm talking about it. And you look back and you can't remember how you thought or at least reacted to the way you were trained to be by your parental background. This is quite interesting because we're all involved with this. Now the question is, in a kind of a way, how do I resolve this? Well, those exercises are to prepare you to be able to see better how you interact within yourself in relationship to the world. Okay. All right. In other words, when you do these exercises, you're turning your hands on and you're engaging with broadening out the amount of energy that is in your landscape. Landscape means in your purview, related to how you think you've engaged with the world and how it engaged with you. This is quite interesting. Why? Because you'll see some good things there, you'll see some not so good things there. And what you're trying to do, and you can do this energetically, at least an attempt to do it, you attempt to soften down some of the places that were pretty harsh in your life, while not necessarily remembering them the way they were. Pause there. But not being negating to yourself for not being perfectly able to remember how it was, but you can remember the stories that you have told yourself reflexively to help yourself to be comforted by you. This is an important thing. Otherwise, these are constructs that relate to survival, And they're very, very important, but they're not always defined in a manner that is exactly true. We see the best we can. Now, why are we seeing better? By having more awareness. That's the question. When we have more awareness, literally, we begin slowly to understand some of the reasons why our personality is the way it is. Not negative, just how it is the way it is. No negation involved here. But just a minute. We're trained to be judges of or react to, another way to say it, things that occur in our life in a manner that would help us to be able to handle living with the construct that we've been a part of in our growing process. And this is often difficult. Why am I bringing that up? Because this relates to an idea about the mind being able to be quiet. Now, that is the emotional mind. The reflexive, logical engagement that we have naturally in us through the process of engaging with life and developing a form we call the personality. It's just an energy form. And being aware of a reflex that is automatic because we practice those reflexes just like that all our lives without our awareness, mostly. So here's a dilemma. We were told we have to be like a parental construct. Not really verbally necessarily told, but we elevate or we put down our parental background and we go into a space within our learning process that says, if I was like that, then I would be really important and better. While at the same time, you thought within yourself, or you felt within yourself, that if you were like that, you didn't want to be at the bottom with someone over top of you putting you down. I don't care what kind of an upbringing you had. As a little person growing, the pressure of being good or bad in a natural relationship with a family background can be made to look like anything, because it can be anything. So if you're 5 years old and you're scolded for being bad, as a silly example, then you will think you're bad. Also, you would like to be the one telling other people that they're bad. And this creates a kind of a dynamic internal that constantly touches us as human beings. From one level, want to be able to be more able than others, and another, we don't want to really be the one on the bottom. We'd like to be the one on the top, more able than others. So it creates a kind of a weird situation. If we don't know that that is a part of our relationship within ourselves, then we're not able to perceive very well a relationship with the higher state. Yes, we can perceive it from time to time. But it doesn't mean we have to be a perfect person to perceive it all the time, because we don't know what a perfect person is. You can work out if you're only going to deal with reflexes. However you act now that comforts you will be the perfect way to be. Because we do the dialogue. We do that. Let me be logical about this. If I have these 4 things better than anyone else, according to me, then I am better than everyone else. You're just trying to be like an adult, treating others like children. The key in this is higher state quietening of the emotional mind doesn't negate the person and the personality. It enables the personality to know there is something beyond itself that can be helpful to it in its learning process. But it trains the personality to be more honest with itself without being judgmental of itself and without elevating itself. We're not prepared to engage with that automatically, but we are prepared to judge ourselves, and that is not a helpful process. So when we use the tools, it increases our awareness. And automatically, we begin to perceive material that we didn't see clearly. First of all, have to say this. Often in others, not always, but often in others, because we revert to being a child again. And it's more in the realm of self-protection than it is in the realm of, I need to know more, I need to learn more, I need to not be the way I am, this kind of thing. And the problem is, you cannot obliterate how you are, but you can stand in relationship to how you are, not necessarily agreeing with it. And that's a relationship. Think about it. If you have a relationship within yourself, if you're on your own, you have a relationship with yourself. I'm advocating, but if you're considering the possibility that there are things within you that you can't see, and you're just interested in seeing more, but not negating, because there's good stuff as well as stuff that we misdefine. And this is a dilemma in the business of having a silent mind. You see, the key in the silent mind, it's been talked about in Buddhism, in Hinduism, in Taoist orientation. You see, silent mind is not really only in the mind. And this is a dilemma. We don't understand this too well. If the emotional mind quiets down, it can perceive more that it is not it. Think about this just for a second. Take a pause. It perceives more that is not it. It can watch things that is touching it physically, emotionally, and mentally that is not about it. It is just there. As an example, many times we have an image that we show at some seminars where 2 people are standing, and it's male and female, and one of them has a throat center that's a little more developed than the other. Another has a brow center that's more developed than the other. And this comes out of the root gonad and solar plexus energies that come up through the system to try and help one to open up more and become more able in perceiving oneself with respect, honesty, gentleness, kindness, compassion, recognizing that the self that it's looking at, itself, is a wonderful being. A being that is capable, ultimately, to engage in some way much beyond the imaginations of what we come up with in our wondrous ability to create beliefs and stories. In that place, right there, the quiet mind, the quieter mind, sees right through anything that you are scheming with internally with respect to the world. I don't care what it is. And with respect to yourself. In our world, nobody wants that. In the world of hopeful belief, everybody wants that. Meaning's this. You want to consider yourself more spiritual than anybody else, more able in some things than anybody else. Or you want to beat yourself more than anybody else beats themselves because you're truly spiritual. These are two places that are actually not helpful in the world of real inner growth, from my perspective. And the purpose of the silencing of the emotional mind is that there is less reactive state, but it's still there. When you are hurting, you react. When you think other people are annoying you, you react. It's kind of a hurting. What you don't know is other people are hurting too. These are the issues that relate to us being normal. We work things out on an individual basis, and that validates how we see the world. Unfortunately, it doesn't really validate because it's not real. Not as real as what we believe, but we have to use that system until we can let go a little bit. And this is process. No one ever says it's process. But here's the thing. Higher states can open the mind to a point where you can handle that opening. Doesn't mean it's fully open, because it can't be. You can't handle it. When I say you, I mean everybody. Nobody on this planet can handle that very well. I might know one person, have met one person that might be able to have handled that. But I can't guarantee that. It's just a surmise. The issue is, life is the field of engaging with growth. Matter and spirit engage as one thing. Your physical form is as much energetic as your emotional or your mental form. Because it's there. you had a little bit of just borderline clairvoyance, you might be able to see that by looking at yourself in a mirror. And it looks like moving bees. I've said this before, and it's first time I saw that years ago. It was shocking to me. I was shaving at the time. I didn't want to cut anything that related, except hair, related to that scene. So I stopped shaving. Came back, and of course I didn't have it the same way. It was just a lesson to help me understand that this physical form is energetic in nature, as well as our emotions. Our personality is just linked to whatever we do more often. We tend to do more often. But this silent mind has been an enigma. And people have tried consciously to get it to quiet down. And you can. But it's not that silent mind. You can quiet down through breath exercises. Quiet it down. But you still are reflectively engaging. In other words, responding and engaging. Exactly when things perturb you or distort the comfort zones of your life. This is normal. All of us have these things. It is natural for us to elevate versions of words, like Indian word Shakti, for example. It just means energy. It's not extra special. It's energy. Shaktipat means getting energy from others who can send it to them. The personality of that sender is still acutely engaging with that energy. If you want to be like that other person, then yeah, fine. But there is a trick. For some real gurus, they don't want their personality transmitted into another. They engage with that higher state and ask for help for those who are growing so that they can be moved along a little bit. Because if it's moved along too much, too quickly, then the individual becomes caught up in the personality style or version of them being more important and more capable than anybody else. This is one of the realities of spiritual growth. It's a dilemma. So what I'm really saying is higher states initiate a position of silence within the construct of our emotional mind. It's a process of recognition by another state when you can actually handle that in a manner that would be helpful to you to grow more. In a manner that would be helpful for you to grow more than where you wish to hold yourself as more superior to others. This is a dilemma in our world. But it is a consistency in our world. Meaning, we like to personalize our engagements through steps of what we call growth into a state where we believe we're more valuable than others. And that's false. It's an act of personality engagement at the level of engagement that occurs here on these planes. At the level of an engagement with energy that occurs on these planes. It's personalized. I once saw a movie a long time ago. I think it was called Lost Horizon. If you ever take a look at that movie, there's a guy who was about 600 and some odd years old, and a guy named, I think his name was Conroy, who went into the Alps, not the Alps, sorry, Himalayas, and had a plane crash with a few others, and they lived in this thing, this area. They were saved by these monks. And this guy was very honest within himself, this Conroy. And this 600 or 650-year-old, whatever it was just glowing. At least the actor was quite good, actually, to be honest. He probably wasn't glowing. Can you give me a... Thank you. I'm sorry. So, anyway, the picture was clear. He wasn't sending energy to this guy. He was just glowing. And he thought that this Conroy, when he died, when the older being died, could take his place. And Conroy really wanted to get back into civilization, like all the rest of them. Anyway, it's an interesting story. It's in black and white, unfortunately, unless they colored it, and if you can never find it. It's interesting. Because it was involved with a place called Shambhala. And Shambhala was an interesting idea and concept, meaning everyone that was there was a tendency to be aware of a very high state. But not all of them were. They were just growing beings. And if they left through this tunnel, very metaphorical, through this tunnel to go back into the matter world, into where they wanted to go, even if they were 300 years old, they never aged a day, of course, but if they left this place, they would just return to dust, return to the matter world, as a being who would be 300 years old. What we try to do in our relationship with growing, the best we can, was try to be open to seeing ourselves in a way that is perhaps a little kinder than we can be, both to ourselves and others. And I'm talking about the secret inside of us. It says that smiles and say, "Nice to see you," but not so much tonight because I'm busy and I'd like to be doing something else. This kind of thing, which is just fundamentally human. But when we're looking at things within ourselves, it's a natural tendency to be as judgmental in what we see, because we think we need to be perfect to have an interaction with a higher state. And that's not true. But it would be helpful, and this, in the hope of those exercises, that I've been trying to be more aware and slowly begin to be okay with seeing the stuff inside ourselves just because it's there, and recognizing that we're like others who have that similar stuff in them just because it's there. I loved the old Greek way of expressing that kind of thing in plays where they had different masks, half a dozen masks in their hand. And I've said this before. Wish everybody could see a play like this, where they would change masks with smiles and grimaces, happy, kind of a forced happy, engaging with the masks as honestly as the play would want them to relate. It sends shivers up your spine. It helps you to relate to the vulnerability that you have in relationship to engaging with others, as well as engaging with yourself, even for the first 6,000 times, whatever that may be. Understanding that you have those things inside of you because of the love you have for yourself. Knowing that that love is not negative, but it's not always perfect in its declarations of how things function. Seeing that is all you need to do. Seeing it when it occurs. It's very difficult to do that because we can't allow ourselves to see something that would distort the images that we already have. Beginning to see it and being okay with it. It's really interesting. Slowly, you begin to be okay. You recognize that sometimes it's distorted, and that is your view of the world. And other times, it's closer to not being distorted, but the distortions are in others like they are in us. Trying to understand that is very difficult for us because we lean on the images that we have in our background. Once again, the 5-year-old looking at the images and the way an individual has to be and act to be important in the world. A certain kind of importance, by the way. It's the way it is for all of us. No exceptions. You have different ways of engaging when you have different people you're engaging with. That's training to help you to be able to function relative to a decision-making process that has occurred someplace along the line without your knowledge, but strong reflexively. That remains when the mind begins to engage with the emotional mind, the mind plane. That mind plane is considered to be a higher state. By some, it's still part of the soul. Some other organizations have different names for different things. Fine, but it doesn't have an impact on how you're growing just because you have a different name. Just a naming thing. Those higher states would not want to hurt anybody, but would always want them to continue to grow. And that quiet mind can happen in small little bursts. And when it does, you find yourself looking at it or you and engaging within that higher state. One could call it soul state, whatever you want to call it, And I know in the Buddhist orientation, they call it a Buddhi state, which is a higher aspect of an emotional mind. In other words, the emotional mind is not focused on its central location that has happened in the past. In other words, our own way of thinking. It's more focused on the idea of being able to watch those old patterns, and sometimes agreeing and sometimes not agreeing at all, but having respect for your own growth, but for the growth of others as well. It's very difficult for both parties. Or if you're on your own, it's difficult because you're dealing with yourself. That's the other party. So how to make sense of all of this? I tend to look at that higher mind state as a state that is initiated by a higher state. It can come in and show you itself, but you can't see it until you're able to watch yourself in action and not necessarily believe that you're all grown up. In other words, finding a balance between the child in you and the adult that needs to be there so you can comfort yourself into a place where you become the only adult. It can't be there. It's there already, but you're using that energy or that love for the love of you, and you don't want to crack that too quickly, because if you do, you're going to start judging yourself just like a little kid might or might not. So Mary Lou, you can see how complicated this is. Well, breaking it down, into a real way of looking at these things is very difficult because you have to talk to people. So think of it as that higher state engages and tries to help for a purpose that relates to getting you into a place where it can help more. And eventually, you sit back, and even though you have nothing active in your brain, and that might spook you, you still are very functional in relationship to engaging with others. This might be helpful in that energy, you can begin to watch energy operating through you, not from you, for the purposes of helping others, not you, to become more able. Even though by actually doing that, you're helped to become more able. It's part of the process of inner development and inner loving in a different way than what we're trained to do. Even though that construction of that personality form is very helpful, because that higher state can be there engaging with it to be helpful to others. I hope that helped a tiny little bit, and I hope that helps those who have been under duress, trying to beat themselves up a little bit on a personal level because they're not perfect in relationship to inner development. It doesn't have anything to do with being perfect. It has a lot to do with becoming awareness of that inner flow, and that first level of awareness is a level of perceiving you. You can really think that you're really able, does he have a lot of energy, but it's basically the intensity that you use for the purpose of engaging with the world. And we know this to be something that can be softened down to help you be able to handle something about what is, what makes you very vulnerable. I think that's it for this question, and thank you very much, and thank others for sending some in. I think I answered 2 or 3 questions in relationship to this particular one question in a different way. See if you can figure those things out for yourself. And once again, I'd like to ask you to send in other questions if you can. And we'll start to meditate, and we'll meditate for roughly about an hour. So, good evening, everybody. And I'll help you to come out of the meditation.
रत्नैः कल्पितमासनं हिमजलैः स्नानं च दिव्याम्बरम् नानारत्नविभूषितं मृगमदामोदाङ्कितं चन्दनम् जातिचम्पकबिल्वपत्ररचितं पुष्पं च धूपं तथा दीपं देवदयानिधे पशुपते हृत्कल्पितं गृह्यताम् सौवर्णेन नवरत्नखण्डरचिते पात्रे घृतं पायसम् भक्ष्यं पञ्चविधं पयोदधियुतं रम्भाफलं पानकम् शाकानां यतं जलं रुचिकरं कर्पूरखण्डोज्ज्वलम् ताम्बूलं मनसा मया विरचितं भक्त्या प्रभो स्वीकुरु छत्रं चामरयोर्युगं व्यजनकं चादर्शकं निर्मलम् वीणाभैरिमृदङ्गकोहलकला गीतं च नृत्यं तथा साष्टाङ्गं प्रणतिः स्तुतिर्बहुविधा एतत् समस्तं मया संकल्पेन समर्पितं तव विभो पूजां ग्रहं जाते विषयोपभोगरचना निद्रा समाधिस्थितिः सञ्चारः पतियोः प्रदक्षिणविधि स्तोत्राणि सर्वा गिरो यत् कर्म करोमि तत् अखिलम् शम्भो तवाराधनम् करचरणकृतं वा कायजं कर्मजं वा श्रवणनयनजं वा मानसं वापराधम् विहितमविहितं वा सर्वमेतच्छमस्व जय जय करुणाब्धे श्री महादेव शम्भो न तातो न माता न बन्धुर्न दाता न पुत्रो न पुत्री न भृत्यो न भर्ता न जाया न वेद्या न वृत्तिर्ममैव गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानी 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 ग गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानि भवाब्धावपारे महादुःखभीरो प्रपातप्रकामी प्रलोभी प्रमत्ता कुसंसारपाश प्रबद्धः सदाहम् गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानि गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानि न जानामि दानं न च ध्यानयोगम् न जानामि तन्त्रं न च स्तोत्रमन्त्रम् न जानामि पूजां न च न्यासयोगम् गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानि गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानि न जानामि पुण्यं न जानामि तीर्थम् न जानामि मुक्तिं लयं वा कदाचित् न जानामि भक्तिं व्रतं वापि माता गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानि गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानि कुकर्मी कुसङ्गी कुबुद्धि कुदास कुलाचारहीन कदाचारलीन कुदृष्टि कुवाक्य प्रवन्द सदाहम् गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानि गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानि प्रजेशं रमेशं महेशं सुरेशं दिनेशं निशीथेश्वरं वा कदाचित् न जानामि चान्यत् सदाहं शरण्ये गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानि गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानि विवादे विषादे प्रमादे प्रवासे जले चानले पर्वते गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानि गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानि अनाथो दरिद्रो जरारोगयुक्तो महाक्षीणदीन सदा जाड्यवक्त्रा विपत्तौ प्रविष्ट प्रणष्ट सदाहम् गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानि गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानि गतिस्त्वं गतिस्त्वं त्वमेका भवानि शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवस्वरूपोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवस्वरूपोऽहं नित्योऽहं शुद्धोऽहं बुद्धोऽहं मुक्तोऽहं नित्योऽहं शुद्धोऽहं बुद्धोऽहं मुक्तोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवस्वरूपोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवस्वरूपोऽहं नित्योऽहं शुद्धोऽहं बुद्धोऽहं मुक्तोऽहं नित्योऽहं शुद्धोऽहं बुद्धोऽहं मुक्तोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवस्वरूपोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिव
चिदोऽहं चिदोऽहं सच्चिदानन्दोऽहं चिदोऽहं चिदोऽहं सच्चिदानन्दोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवस्वरूपोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवस्वरूपोऽहं नित्योऽहं शुद्धोऽहं बुद्धोऽहं मुक्तोऽहं नित्योऽहं शुद्धोऽहं बुद्धोऽहं मुक्तोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवस्वरूपोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं शिवस्वरूपोऽहं मनोबुद्ध्यहङ्कार चित्तानि नाहं न च श्रोत्रजिह्वे न च घ्राणनेत्रे न च व्योमभूमिर्न तेजो न वायु चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं न च प्राणसंज्ञो न वै पञ्चवायु न वा सप्तधातु न वा पञ्चकोश न वाक्पाणिपादं न चोपस्तपायु चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् न मे द्वेषरागो न मे लोभमोहो मदोर्नैव मे नैव मात्सर्यभावः न धर्मो न चार्थो न कामो न मोक्षः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् न पुण्यं न पापं न सौख्यं न दुःखं न मन्त्रो न तीर्थं न वेदा न यज्ञः अहं भोजनं नैव भोज्यं न भोक्ता चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् न मृत्युर्न शङ्का न मे जातिभेदः पिता नैव मे नैव माता न जन्म न बन्धुर्न मित्रं गुरुर्नैव शिष्यः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् अहं निर्विकल्पो निराकाररूपो विभुत्वाच्च सर्वत्र सर्वेन्द्रियाणां न च सङ्गतं नैव मुक्तिर्न मेया चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं 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 शिवोऽहम्
नाम्पहाचितलिङ्गम् निर्मलभासितशोभितलिङ्गम् जन्मज दुःखविनाशकलिङ्गम् तत्प्रणमामि सदा शिवलिङ्गम्। देवमुनि प्रवरार्चितलिङ्गम् कामदहन करुणाकरलिङ्गम् रावणदर्पविनाशनलिङ्गम् तत्प्रणमामि सदा शिवलिङ्गम्। सर्वसुगन्धिसुलेपितलिङ्गम् बुद्धिविवर्धनकारणलिङ्गम् सिद्धसुरासुरवन्दितलिङ्गम् तत्प्रणमामि सदा शिवलिङ्गम्। कणकमहामणिभूषितलिङ्गम् फणिपतिवेष्टितशोभितलिङ्गम् दक्षसुयज्ञविनाशकलिङ्गम् तत्प्रणमामि सदा शिवलिङ्गम्। कुङ्कुमचन्दनलेपितलिङ्गम् पङ्कजहारसुशोभितलिङ्गम् सञ्चितपापविनाशकलिङ्गम् तत्प्रणमामि सदा शिवलिङ्गम्। देवगणार्चितसेवितलिङ्गम् भावैर्भक्तिभिरेव च लिङ्गम् दिनकरकोटिप्रभाकरलिङ्गम् तत्प्रणमामि सदा शिवलिङ्गम्। अष्टदलोपरिवेष्टितलिङ्गम् सर्वसमोद्भवकारणलिङ्गम् अष्टतरेत्रविनाशकलिङ्गम् तत्प्रणमामि सदा शिवलिङ्गम्। सुरगुरुसुरवरपूजितलिङ्गम् सुरवनपुष्पसदार्चितलिङ्गम् परमपदं परमात्मकलिङ्गम् तत्प्रणमामि सदा शिवलिङ्गम् तत्प्रणमामि सदा शिवलिङ्गम् तत्प्रणमामि सदा शिवलिङ्गम्
Now we'll just begin to do the bouncing and the grounding. Please take your time in this one and have a really good evening. Take care.